Print Your Games Podcast, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by...
Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres.
And Kristen, you have brought on a very special guest for us this week, somebody that you seem to have been very excited about. Why don't you introduce our guest for us?
Well, we have Caleb Goodson from 3D Art Digital with us. They are one of the first Patreons that I was so impressed by that I dove on that annual, because I just love the animated and like the energy all the menus have are crazy, and the themes are really tight, and just super excited to kind of learn how Caleb came to us and how he got into gaming and everything today. So yeah, Caleb, I think welcome to the show, and I'm super excited to have you here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and thank you. I didn't know you were that excited. That's very flattering. Thank you, sir.
Nothing but the truth. So how did you... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I have to agree with Kristen here. Your pieces have a very distinct, refined style. They're very elegant, they're clean, and everything just like it exudes professionalism with the designs, and it's at a polished level that I am not used to seeing with many of the Patreons or many of the artists out there. This looks like something I would very much expect to see at some of the high cost booths at Gen Con.
Well, that's the strength of our artists, honestly. That's Yulia and Boris Ekin and Sergei Sobol. They're Ukrainians. They take their artwork very, very seriously, and I'm the idea man. I'm the one that comes up with the release, and they consult me at every step of the way, asking, "Hey, how does this look? Do you think the patrons would like this? Do you think this makes sense? What exactly is this?" Because they're not gamers, they're artists, so they're not really familiar with a lot of this stuff. Like at one point, they sent me a picture of a displacer beast. And for those of you that don't know, that's like a predatory cat with 6 limbs and 2 tentacles sprouting out of its back. And they said, "This is great. What is this?" I said, "Well, that's a displacer beast." "What is it?" "Well, it's from Dungeons and Dragons. It's an old monster." "Oh, can we make something like this?" "Yes, we can. I'll add it to one of our releases, and I'll give a description about it."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it sounds like... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, recently popular in the Dungeons and Dragons trailer that just dropped, there is a displacer beast running around there. So a whole bunch of people now are curious what they are.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, that looks like fun. Yeah. And some of the artist depictions of the displacer beast, it's very difficult to get such a monster looking cool, because with those 2 tentacles out of its back, it looks kind of goofy. And
it can look like a little bit slappy.
Right. But there was one rendition I saw that was really good. The displacer beast was actually using the tentacles to push itself into a leaping position while its claws were coming down towards an adventurer. I really liked that. And I thought that that sort of style would kind of work, because that makes sense.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you know what a displacer beast is and you know where it comes from, you gamed in the past. How did you get into gaming, and how'd you start that?
Well, I've been a game master for about 30 years.
Awesome. Me too.
A couple of, I'm 42, so that'll give you the age range there. So at the age of 12, I encountered a couple of friends that happened to have a Dungeons and Dragons book, and I flipped through it. I looked at it, and I thought, well, this looks neat. And then I just went on from there, learned more and more about it, and eventually I started running my own games. The first game I actually ran was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG from Palladium.
And Other Strangeness.
Yeah, and Other Strangeness, right. I got to get the title correct. You are right.
Yes.
No longer in print.
I have it all. I still have them all mine.
After the Bomb, the one that came out with in the 90s, that was kind of the successor to that, is excellent. I still run that from time to time. And that one, I get requests to run it from my gaming buddies, because they just really love how over the top it is.
That is awesome to hear. So did you say dungeon mastering? Is the world we're seeing glimpses of in your Patreon releases, is that inspired by your world specifically?
It is from my world specifically, all of it.
Awesome. Okay,
Every
cool.
bit you see is one of my brain children.
That is very cool to know. So do you mind me putting you on the spot and asking what edition you generally run for, or do you care?
I don't care. I don't care one bit. Normally, I run Pathfinder First Edition. As an old
Oh,
school.
This is
gamer.
why you like him, Kristen.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But you're speaking to my heart. 3.5 Pathfinder First is my jam. So awesome. Sorry, keep going.
I have looked at Pathfinder Second Edition, and I'm considering running that because it does allow for a variety of character types. I really like the idea of, say, running around as a skeleton, or running around as an abomination with beastkin ancestry. I think that looks really cool, and I like my players having options like that. Because it is fun doing the standard fantasy races, but sometimes you want to just expand from that and get out of that a little bit.
Yeah, I publish third-party content for PF1 just because I love the weird stuff. So I totally hear you.
Oh yeah. And I've had a couple of articles published in Palladium Books as the Rifter. I was so into After the Bomb, I came up with a bunch of new types of mutant animals, and I came up with a system that allowed you to mix and match the DNA types from mutant animals, so you could make things like a griffin or stuff like that if you wanted.
That'd have been cool. Some like chimera type characters.
Yeah, and of course there was a price for it. Like if you messed with your DNA too much, there was a chance that you could become so mutated you essentially became this feral beast, which you could still play as. It's just you would lose a bunch of your skills, and you were just basically the party's pet is what would happen to you.
That's cool.
The price of power. And of course, anytime you became a chimera, you would be sterile, which After the Bomb doesn't really touch on that, but there's an importance in having children because everyone's DNA is so altered and so messed up.
Yeah.
It's hard to procreate. So children are exceedingly valuable.
I could see that. After the Bomb was really an interesting setting. I also did a lot of Mutants Down Under stuff kind of mixed into it when I played it. So it's very cool. Kind of tell us maybe more about your world though that your Patreon releases are set in. I'm curious about that.
Oh, okay. Well, I call the world Saroth, and like anything else, there's people, places, settings, nations, things of that nature. There are gods, and the gods are embodiments of universal concepts, so to speak. Like there's one god that we've actually done a 3D render of, and we sold that in our first Kickstarter together. Pufnathrax Coronative. That's the machine dragon.
So, yeah, I saw the big dragon, and it's a god. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, he's a god. He is the god of courage, ambition, and wealth. And he is exceedingly arrogant. And his origin was he was getting old. He was an ancient dragon, and he didn't want to die. And he thought that undeath was beneath him. So he decided to have a mechanical body constructed for him. When he transferred his soul into the mechanical body, something went wrong. And so it's in a constant state of corrosion and rebuilding. So
Gotcha.
That's why he kind of looks a little rough. His wings are a little tattered. And you'll see that he's kind of got a few chips in his claws and things like that. That's to represent that corrosion. And I named him Pufnathrax because, Puff the Magic Dragon, and then Permathrax Quadrative is the dragon.
I kind of wondered when I saw Pufnathrax. I was like, okay.
That's a double reference there.
Do not have enough Puff the Magic Dragon references in gaming these days.
And he also came with a big temple, I think. So I guess that makes sense because I figured maybe it was his lair, but I do remember that it was called the Temple. So that's awesome. I didn't realize he was.
Oh yeah. There's even an entire order dedicated to him, the Order of the Tarnished Scale, consisting of knights and the occasional paladin. He doesn't sponsor many paladins though, because I'm of the old school belief that paladins should be sponsored by good gods. Not every deity gets a paladin, because that makes no sense at all.
We'll try to protect you from the 5e players.
Why, I don't care. Why would 5e players? Why would the god of torture need a paladin?
Yeah, well, I just called that an anti-paladin back in the day, but yeah, I hear you. So how did that translate? Like, you got this world. How did you start moving into the idea of sharing with other people and getting the artists to sculpt and everything? How'd that start?
Well, the funny thing about that is I discovered 3D Art Digital by accident.
Okay.
I've always been a mini painter. And just scrolling through Instagram, I found this very beautiful orc statue, an orc warlord. And I looked at it, and you could see the veins and the muscles, the facial expression, just how very aggressive it looked. And I just kept staring at it. And then I read the description, and I said, oh, God, these people can't speak English, like at all.
Okay.
This is the most broken. Yeah, that's it right there. It's the most broken English I've ever seen in my life. So I contacted them, and I didn't know this, but I was contacting the wife of one of the artists. And I said, hey, your English needs help. And she said, yes, but we cannot pay you. I said, that's fine. I said, I'll help you. Really? Yeah, absolutely. So I helped them out with their first Kickstarter, which was, I think, Orcs and Goblins, something like that. I don't remember exactly the name of it. Oh, the Warlords, Orcs and Goblins, the Warlords. And that was a success. And then they contacted me later on and asked for my help with another one, which is a bunch of busts. So I named all their busts and wrote descriptions for that. And that ended up okay. And they asked me why it wasn't more successful. And I said, well, guys, you did busts. You're not going to make a lot of money off of that. This is a niche market within a niche market.
Right.
And they said, okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So we've heard some of that same disappointment in bust sales from like a Tyrant Troll does beautiful, wonderful busts, but like the pressure is to make more fantasy game figures, and like the world needs more beautiful busts because we've got a whole bunch of orcs, but there's not where the money is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, sorry, the busts are wonderful, but they're not going to sell as well. It's just how it is.
Right.
And then they came to me a third time and they said, hey, we want to work with you again, but we don't have any ideas. I said, oh, really? well, guys, here's what we'll do this time. I said, a percentage. I want a percentage of whatever it is you take in. And in addition to that, I want you to bring me in fully as like a partner. I said, okay, well, we'll discuss it. And about half an hour, they came back and they said, yes. I said, okay. I said, well, here's our page. And they had no ideas. I said, all right, give me a little bit. So I filled it up with all the ideas in that Kickstarter. The one that we called Survivors of Sarath. Yeah.
Yes.
I
backed that one.
That particular Kickstarter. Oh, thank you. And I came up with that in about a couple of hours. And then after that, they said they wanted to do a Patreon. I said, okay, no problem. So I filled up enough releases to last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had the next 2 years planned out. And then, well, the war.
Yes.
And they're all Ukrainians.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And there are so many artists, especially in the wargaming and miniature field in Eastern Europe, and so to hear that there are groups in Ukraine is no surprise at all, and I can't even imagine what that's like. So sorry for interrupting you there.
Oh no, sorry. Well, it was pretty terrifying. I had been warning them for about 6 months that they needed to get out, and of course, you don't want to believe that your homeland is going to get attacked. But I said, guys, I'm looking at everything, and it looks like they've got you in a pincer. You need to get out. They said, oh, no, it'll be all right. It'll be okay. They're just saber rattling. I said, well, okay, I hope I'm wrong. And then war broke out. I didn't hear from anybody for a week.
Yeah.
You
mentioned
I was freaking out, too, because these people were my friends. I mean, they called me brother. It was like they were like family. And I was messed up until I started hearing. I said, hey, we're okay. We're here. We're all right. We're over here. We're okay. I said, oh, okay, thank God. And then Sergey, one of my team members, contacted me, and he sent me pictures. He and a bunch of other refugees had got together and were actually feeding people in Kharkiv, which is his hometown, home city, I guess you should call it. And he said, "Hey, Caleb, yeah, you know that project we were working on together, you and me? We were doing a little side project, bases." And I said, "Yeah. Can we do that for like a charitable thing?" I said, "Well, yeah, but bro, it's only halfway done. We wouldn't have enough." And he said, "Well, what should we do?" I said, "Well, my reputation is solid. Your reputation is solid. Let's just start asking other creators. Let's just see what we can do. And maybe we can get enough product to maybe put something together." And guys, it was unbelievable. It was just like a trickle, and then a rainstorm, and then a flood. And then we had over $1,000 worth of digital product.
Yeah, it's a huge value, but the community response of that Kickstarter, wow.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting that, and I wasn't expecting it to take in as much money either. And it was just Sergey and myself running things, and we were quickly overwhelmed by it.
The Kickstarter ended with 440,000 USD.
Yeah, and then it was carried over to My Mini Factory, and that raised another, I think, 130,000. I'd have to look at it.
That is correct,
Mhm.
and it's actually still available for late pledges, which I was very happy to see. I mean, hopefully that can still get some help to people.
So if there's any community members that still haven't helped out and want to, you can go to the Frontier page and still pledge in to get more, to make that number much higher.
Yeah, that's important. And what he's done with the money, as you can see from some of the pictures that we posted, has been really good too. Not only did we have enough money to fund a team in Kharkiv, we actually had enough money to fund a second team in Nikolaev. So we've got 2 sites now that are producing food and feeding these people who really just need, who don't have a source of good food, and now they're getting it.
Wow, that's incredible. So that's like money has already been like put into place, and the actual relief efforts are underway.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can see it on our Discord. Sergey posts. He just posted 10 days ago, actually, showing off what's going on in Nikolaev. And he posted the delivery vans he picked up, the fuel, all the food, the boilers that he's got. He's got some that run on fuel, and that some that some that work with firewood in case the power goes out. They can just chop down trees and still make food for the people. Yeah, the man really thought of everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I told him several times, I said, "Brother, I wish I was with you and your team doing the real work." And he said this. He says, "No, you are our master of words. You must be here where you are." I said, "Okay." Okay.
Well, I just remember seeing the Patreon post and seeing that, like, they were like literally fleeing for their lives, and I was very happy that patrons, at least from my visible standpoint, like everybody seemed pretty supportive.
Most were. I got 1 or 2 private messages like, I demand a refund. And I said, "Oh, okay, fine.
That's unfortunate.
Go with God." Bye.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't help that the artist country was attacked.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, good grief! It's you put it on pause too. You didn't. I'm sorry. You put your Patreon on pause. It's not
like you were charging people and not delivering.
Yeah, like
No,
you all
no.
have been like incredibly above board with explaining the situation and what's going on, and the difficulties and keeping people updated. I'm surprised anybody had any objections.
Well, it doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to get somebody that complains about it, and you're going to get somebody that wants to attack you for it. I mean, even when you're doing good. I had one person message me about this Kickstarter, accusing me of being a fraud and a scam artist, and I just said, "Look, man, just look at the pictures we posted.
Right.
If you don't want to support it, that's fine. You don't have to. Nobody says you have to. I don't know what what you seek to accomplish here.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But like, yeah, I understand. Like, there have been like fairly prolific bad act. You've got pictures going, you've got tone, you've got very open lines of communications, you've got a humongously well-respected reputation, plus all the artists that have chipped in to help. When we first started, just so like our audio listeners wouldn't be able to see this, but when we first started talking about this, like 10 minutes ago, I pulled up the page and started just scrolling at a brisk pace through the list. And I'm 2/3 down the page. This is how many STL files were in this charity bundle?
Bro, I haven't counted it.
I know it's over 2,000, but I don't know the exact number.
Easily. You'll like
There's
this.
those tiles we were talking about before the show.
I had one guy message me saying he didn't want to bother setting up an account with My Mini Factory to get these files, and asked me if I would be willing to send them to him through a Gmail account.
Oh my goodness!
I wrote him. I said, "It's over 2,000 files.
It would be faster to mail a hard drive."
Yes. I said, no, I'm not doing that.
One gold piece is one of my favorite contributors. They're in here too.
Well, and
so many. I'm being unfair not calling out everybody involved, because it seems like it was everybody.
Just about.
There's Asgard Rising.
Almost. Yeah, and there's us. There's Sergey. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Like working off of a pallet table with a folding chair and laptop. I guess
he's in a bunker too. By the way.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's a bunker.
Oh man.
Well,
like an underground shelter, and he was sharing that with 10 other guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is not that already does not look like a big space.
No.
But it looks better than my college dorm room, though. So.
Yeah. Well, there's always that age-old question: compared to what?
Yeah.
So yeah, another thing I would throw about it being still open, if you haven't, if a listener hasn't supported it, if you are getting into 3D printing and want to support a good cause and just get a blast of so many different creators to kind of see the style you like, this is it. Like, good cause, huge variety, and immediately getting a sense of their creations. I would definitely check this out if you're
going to keep your printer busy for a while. Like, it's a great starter pack to getting into it. I know a lot of people that are watching the show are getting into 3D printing for the first time. I know because we get messages like all the time after every episode about, hey, what's a great printer to start with? I'm getting so many of those lately.
Well, we also have a lot of listeners that are building collections before they start, which is amazing to me. But this would be a huge surplus of stuff. I mean, you could almost fill out your whole campaigns. Yeah, James says, great sampler to find new artists. Totally, exactly that.
Absolutely. Which was an unintended happy consequence.
What did it feel like to see so many of the artists in the field coming in to help out with this? Like, it literally looks like it was almost everybody that I know of that's producing right now.
It was amazing. I mean, I wasn't really expecting that much, and to see all that come in, to know that this many people care, first of all, and secondly, that this many people would trust Sergey and myself was it was heartening. I mean, it was. It's easy to see the evil in the world because it's always right in your face. And human nature, you always want to know where evil is so you can avoid it. You have to search a lot of times to see the good. And to have the good just present itself to me over and over and over again, it was great to see it. And it restores a lot of faith in humanity in general.
And speaking of restored faith, recently on Patreon, you mentioned that your people are all safe now, right?
Yes.
And that maybe maybe given things you're going to be getting back in the swing of things, do you have any things you want to talk to us about coming up? Or is it too soon for that?
I can't say anything yet because it is too soon.
Okay.
We have had one of the patrons offer shelter and a space to work.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, which is really, really good. I'm not mentioning any names because
no,
I didn't get permission
makes
to do
sense.
that. Yeah, but it's very heartening. Everyone is safe except Sergey, but Sergey's in the thick of it trying to help and feed people. But the others are safe, and so we should be able to start back up soon.
You mentioned in one of your posts that one of your team members was accepted as a refugee in Japan.
Yeah. Where's Am, the guy who does our supports? Well, that's his name on Discord. I don't have permission to give his real name, so he'll just be Where's Am. And he actually sent some pictures from his stay in Japan, and it's interesting. Of all the countries to give him refuge, ended up being Japan.
It's very cool.
He actually still posts on our Discord. Thankfully, he's posting less flashes of missiles and bullets now, and more memes, and I'm okay, that kind of thing.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how nerve-wracking it must be to have people you care so much about in such a dangerous situation.
When it first happened, I didn't sleep for 3 days.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I was a wreck, and I was deeply, deeply upset, of course, and I just didn't know what to do. And that was one of the things. I'm in my 40s. I'm basically a scholar and philosopher. I'm tough, but I'd be no use in a battle. I mean, it's ridiculous just to even think about that. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go over there and rescue my friends. That's what most guys would think.
Right.
And so I desperately wanted a way to help. And Sergey comes along with this, and I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll help. Well, whatever you need, brother. And so I wrote up emails to send to the artists, inspirational things to say, inspirational things to get people to donate, things like that. Because, I'm a pretty good writer and a pretty good speaker. So I was able to use the communication skills I have to help. And thank God I was able to do that.
I mean, obviously you were able to do a lot. This hit the entire community. Everybody knew about this when it was happening. It got way out there, massively successful, and really your team should be applauded for, it's real easy and can somewhat even seem a little selfish to want to go solve it yourself on the ground, from over here. But you all were smart. You have team on the ground there. You worked with you made actual change happen using the real resources and not the fantasies things you wish you could do. You actually did make change.
Well, there's that. That is true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's something I always talk about is that doing heroic gaming, fantasy art, role playing, whatever. I think that it can give us the firmware in our brains to actually be heroic, and it's so cool to actually see you as an enthusiast actually live up to it. Where you turned that kind of heroic gaming into the actual fuel to do something actually heroic, and it's amazing to me.
I didn't think about that. That is an interesting thought, though. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
nice perspective.
So, could you give us a little bit more about the actual feedback of you mentioned there's lots of pictures, some examples of some of the good it is doing now that you've actually pulled it off?
Oh, what do you mean by feedback? Do you mean people talking about it, or do you mean
just I'm sorry.
You said you have two different
success missions, success.
You have two different sites running now. You got to open a second.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we've got the site in Kharkiv and we've got the site in Nikolaev, and hundreds of people are getting fed every day. Right. I mean, just the pictures that Sergey sent. I mean, it's just a very small amount of what he and his team are doing. Mm-hmm. And did you see the picture of his hands by chance?
No,
I haven't. Have you?
Oh, okay. He sent one, and I had to post it because he had messed up his hands,
Oh,
actually, from
no.
doing so much labor, doing so much work. Of course, he has better tools now, but they're working with hand tools. And so you can actually see the sacrifice that these people are making to help their own people, because these are Ukrainian refugees who are helping other Ukrainian refugees, which in itself is remarkable.
Yeah, and it is really heartening to know that, like, when you're contributing to something like this, you're contributing to actual people on the ground working it, whereas other contributions, while always helpful, can sometimes get lost in bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's always a danger of that. Any sort of large organization just sucks up money in bureaucratic costs. Well, you didn't really have that because it was just two guys.
Right, right.
And of course, Kickstarter will take its due, and there'll be taxes on it and things like that. But the majority of the money is going to help the people, and that's what's important.
You've done a lot of big campaigns like this, and you've done the Kickstarters, and then you started moving into regular Patreon releases. Which of those two strategies do you find yourself most comfortable doing?
Kickstarter. I think that Patreon is a huge grind. I think that it's a real drain on the artists who are working on Patreon to produce so much content. And I think that Patreon produces actually a lot of fickle people, if I'm going to be, completely blunt.
You mean like in terms of patrons?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And some of the insulting things they say on the way out too is sort of like, man, you would never say that if I was standing there right in front of you.
Really?
That's unfortunate.
Oh yeah. Like because when you cancel a Patreon, there's always an opinion
Right.
survey at the very end, and you can say
Mhm.
something. And some of the stuff, I just quit reading it because it gets disheartening. Like, you're just not good enough. There was one that, all right, so we did like the Undersea Kingdom, the Kingdom of Coraline, and then we did the
Right.
Pirates. And then we
Right.
decided to do some sea monsters too. We had 3 months of real cool sea releases.
Right.
That turned out to be a massive mistake.
Oh no.
Yes, that turned
Oh,
out
no.
to be an error. There were people who left over it because we had 3 months of sea themes, and that was only because everything that I had come up with was so big it wouldn't fit in a single release. Because
Right.
as the artists and I fed off of each other, we were coming up with more and more interesting things to create and produce. Like,
This was the Coraline, Kingdom of Coraline.
You've got one of the best sea monsters going.
yeah, that was actually, I think that was 2 releases in one. No, not 2 releases in one, but it ended up having to be 2 months worth of releases because we had so many.
Well, and then there's also a pirate one too, right?
Yeah. The Pirates. That one ended up being pretty cool too. And then we had Were Sharks, and a lot of people didn't like the Were Sharks.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be like, just to share some of your pain, our all aquatic episode seems to be one of our underperformers too.
Aw.
So, like, something about aquatic adventures seems to. There's a lot of demand and a lot of people want it. And when I was doing the Pathfinder podcast, there was always like a big clamor for us to review the pirate stuff. But like, it just didn't pull the numbers, and that's sad because pirate are cool.
It's so
Especially this freaking ogre pirate riding on the front of a ship with a harpoon.
Oh man. Okay, that's Johnny Blackguts. All right, let me tell you about Johnny Blackguts. He is on.
There's no conversation that's not awesome. Begins with, "Let me tell you about Johnny Blackguts."
All right, yeah, I'll use the right voice. Let me tell you about Johnny Blackguts, mate.
All
Right. It's ogres on the hunt for their father of all were sharks, a giant, great, scarred were shark called the Shark Father. And I had that planned But the war broke out now, and now we've got to do the Shark Father later.
We'll never get the shark. Well, hopefully,
But you
we'll get
do
the
have
Shark
his
Father.
minions. I have seen the were shark. There's like some troops, right? Like,
Oh yeah. The Sanguine Sea. That's right. Yeah. So we did.
Okay,
The
the
we did the
parrot. We got to
oh.
talk about the parrot.
Big
The-
Polly.
The gargantuan 6-inch tall parrot.
Oh, okay.
It's a nightmare.
You want to know where Big Polly came from? Okay. Big Polly came from a childhood drawing when I was about 7 years old.
Okay.
I had seen the movie Predator,
Right.
and for some weird reason, I was looking at parrots, and then I was thinking about the Predator, and then I thought, Parretator.
Portmanteau, the parrot.
And so I drew this giant parrot as a little kid, and Big Polly has been in my head ever since. And so I told them about it, and I said, yes, we must do this. This is fantastic. So I did Big Polly. Finally got to see him in real rendered. Yeah, there he is in all his glory. And
Like it looks evil. It has like a death glare. Like there are people that said like, hey, T-Rexes might be birds more in real life than actually. This parrot has convinced me.
Also there was this parakeet that my uncle had owned named Peevis, and Peevis had inhaled some glue when he was younger, and so he was brain damaged.
no.
And he was this psychotic little bird that hated everything that lived. He would try to attack you and bite you, and of course, his little beak wouldn't do any damage, but he tried. And so I remember Peevis, and I channeled a bit of his spirit into Big Polly when I wrote him up.
I like the hammerhead shark dudes in the release too. That's a little unusual to see that variety, because you've got both kind of your standard, like your great white looking guys, and then you have the hammerhead looking ones as well.
Well,
You mentioned you paint miniatures,
oh yeah.
and I think I saw one of your paint ups in the Kickstarter, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I painted a few of the bases. Like I did the big skull with the tree coming out of the eye, and then I did one that I did in an icy theme that has a bunch of skulls on icicles, and then I did a fiery one that I did in green flames, which I really enjoy green fire, just because the concept and the idea, and what you can actually do if you just throw some copper and some fire, and it'll turn green.
I always think of Secret of Nem. I think got me into the green flame, because the Nicodemus had like green fire all around him. Like,
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, that would do it too. Plus, there's always the
One of my favorite.
Sorry.
plus there's always the Skaven with the warp fire. Always the little.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite sets that you all did is the witch hunters, especially when the ogre witch hunter showed up. And I don't know what it is, but I like about really cool freaking ogres. But like the 4-barrel boomstick that this vampire hunter is showing up, like if I was a vampire, I would wet myself the moment this thing stepped through the door.
The funny thing about the quad barrel shotgun, Boris sends me this idea, and he says, Sir Caleb, they call me Sir Caleb. That's an old thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I said, do you think this will work? And I said, yes, this will work. Do it. 4-barreled shotgun? Yes. That's the most we can do here in the United States is a triple-barreled shotgun.
I didn't know there was a limit.
Well, there is a limit because, you don't want to throw your shoulder out of socket.
Fair enough. But the ogre can handle it. He can handle the quad barrel.
Oh, absolutely. He sure can. And I
love that it's got the silver werewolf head underneath it. That's like a wonderful detail.
Oh yeah. I mean, they always throw in small things like that. Yeah, I mean, the artists are phenomenal, as you can see. And the render here, because they're using a source lighting, you can't really see his face very well, but his face is just incredibly well sculpted. And he looks, that you can see a little better there. Yeah, just the ogre fangs jutting out, just this look of disdain on his face, just beautiful.
And it's an ogre by way of a slightly squished Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, kind of. It does have some elements of The Man with No Name in there. I do like that. Yeah,
I love that like Victorian dark horror theming on things. So like this was the set that got my attention the most. Like this is when your team really peaked on my radar.
I do love the Vampire Hunter theme, and it is a lot of fun.
I think the one
And I like the idea of teaming up that ogre vampire hunter with our tiefling cleric, and
kind of a buddy cop moment there.
yeah, kind of. And some of the flavor text I wrote actually have them talking to each other, like the tiefling is blessing him, and the ogre's actually kneeling with his hats up underneath his shoulder there, getting his weapon blessed. In one of the flavor texts I wrote, yeah, I liked the idea of them being together, and of course the artist liked the idea of a devilish priest who's really a good guy.
I was gonna say is it Farson, the desert themed set.
The Farson satrapies, yeah.
I think that was what got me to fully like commit to the big membership. I was like, I need this. I want more of this.
Now Farson is one of my favorite settings that I've created. Farson is a combination of Orthodox Islam and the Aztec religion.
Interesting mashup.
Their god Suktin is he who calls the weak, and he despises weakness in any form. So in this country, you're not even allowed to engage in first aid on any perform first aid or magical healing. That's all illegal. Either you survive or you die, and whoever's strong enough to reproduce, they were the strong ones.
Is that another ogre in there?
That's an orc.
It's an orc, the big dude with the chains and everything.
Your setting has some beefy orcs.
Yeah. Yes.
There are actually 3 half orcs in this release. There's one with the executioner's sword holding the head.
Yeah.
There's another one. He's got a turban on his head, and then there's a lady up top, and she's got a big scimitar with a shield. The fellow with the chains. All right, this is a race that I created specifically for my world called the Jupawin. And the Jupawin are human beings who are afflicted with what I call the beast curse, which is essentially lycanthropy, except you don't manifest this until you hit puberty. And when you hit puberty, that's when the curse kicks in and you turn into sort of an animal-human hybrid.
Gotcha.
And because werebeasts are persecuted, most of them have been driven into the deserts by by the other civilizations. And so the Farson satrapies hunts the werewolves of the Jipwin, and they perform experiments on them. So what you're seeing here is what's essentially a warrior slave. You can't really see it in this render, but he's got some alchemical vials in his back where they've pumped up his curse to 11, added some magic to it, and he's got these roided out muscles as a result.
Right.
And you're flipping through now to take a look.
Well, I think the giant lizard's distracting. If you're listening to this giant lizard that's like next to our big steroid werewolf man, he's also quite intimidating.
Yeah, that's they blew me away when they showed me that. I said, hey, check out this one. I said, oh wow, okay, yeah, I approve. That's awesome. But yeah, you can see you can actually see the alchemical vials now a little bit around his collar.
Right. For our listeners, there are these giant vials just like plugged into this tiger panther thing, covered in chains and tubes. It kind of looks like what Skavens would do to a house cat.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I think that comparison is apt. Yeah, but we also have a whole release based on the Jipawin, like the different tribes of Jipawin or werebeasts, what have you, that we were planning on releasing too.
I'll cross my fingers. Everybody stay safe, because I have missed that monthly drop of amazingness for sure. But
yeah, and
lives are more important. But
right, and the reason I created them was, I had different people who wanted to play as, an animal person in a fantasy world. And you can only have so many societies and so many different intelligent species in your world before it begins to feel bloated. And you start getting the question, okay, why are they here?
Right.
What's the history behind them? And it's too much. So I just made them humans who were cursed.
Sure.
And so you could get any kind of animal person you wanted.
Get all of your beast men and your
right.
boar people and your tiger
right.
people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And all that. And they're all from the same tribe, and they can procreate with each other because they're just humans.
Right. And then the curse does whatever it does.
Right. It does whatever it does. So when one of these is born, they're born human.
Yeah, that's probably like one of the biggest differences between a fantasy setting and a sci-fi setting is you go to a sci-fi setting and usually it's like every unique, intelligent, sapient. Am I thinking of sapient the right word here? Species is
what you're looking.
Sapient, sentient. Yeah, they both work, but go on.
Is like from a unique planet, and even Star Trek made a big deal like the few times they go to a planet and there's two. But you go to any given fantasy world, and with few notable exceptions, your traditional Tolkien one is like there are 37 different types of elves and dwarves and half folk and dog folk and chicken folk and it really does stress my limits of belief, even though I love fantasy settings so much.
That's why I always go planar, because you get all those worlds. It's just you connect it all and you get anything you want. Just bring it from that other world. It's fine.
Well, it is important.
We all have hot dogs for fingers.
Well, hot dogs for fingers. Well, it is important that you keep whatever it is you create familiar enough to draw someone in, but unique enough to stand out. And that's always been the design philosophy that we have. I'd say, and I got to do a discussion with this on our Discord with one of the members there. He said, well, I want to have an ogre wizard, that's very intelligent. I said, well, all well and good, but that's not an ogre. And he said, why? I said, well, an ogre represents the most primal aspect of human nature. He's big, he's powerful, he takes what he wants, he does what he wants, and he's not civilized because he's constantly filling his belly or engaging in his whims. Now, you can stretch that concept if you want a magical ogre, but you would have to go to, say, like a shaman or a sorcerer, something that's primal. An ogre, in general, would not be bookish. Even an ogre wizard wouldn't be very bookish.
So you're saying in your world that would become like a different type of giantkin that has like a different aesthetic and a different culture?
In any world, it would be that way, because you can only stretch a concept so far before it breaks.
I'm all about the weird, so like I probably am a little less coherent when I assign roles, but
and that's okay. That's okay. Just understand that's going against type, and it's okay to go against type to a certain degree. See, a bookish ogre would still struggle against his nature, which is to dominate, to hunger for something. Like you could have that expressed as he's constantly hungering for more knowledge and more power. He'd be an obsessive wizard.
I like that spin.
Yeah,
and that you devour knowledge instead.
Right.
You can still stay in your ogre ballywick.
Right.
Maybe if I eat you, maybe I get your knowledge.
And that would work very well. That would actually be better.
I honestly love that. There's a third-party class called Gourmand for Pathfinder First Edition, actually, that gets powers from what it eats, and it's tied to an ogre-kin race, actually. So, like, yeah, I think that's actually even out there.
Right. And that actually fits into the type very well. You could still get what you want, like your magic wizardy ogre, but it's still an ogre.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go too far. See, even if your dwarves aren't forging mountain-dwelling people, they still need to be craftsmen of some sort.
I think if you want to like tap that archetype and that fantasy well up for sure, having the dwarves even, like maybe be scrimshaw artists or something in a different environment would be.
Right,
I think,
right. But
yeah.
what the dwarves represent the industriousness of humanity, the hard-working aspect that we have. See, the dwarf is like the working class of the fantasy realm. He's very physical. He's always working very hard. He loves his family. He loves his traditions. He loves his home.
I think the goblins muscle in on that a little bit too, because when you've got like your grunt goblins, there's a bunch of those too. But I think it varies world to world. But
Well, the goblins represent the more cowardly, the more cringing aspect of humanity.
You have very specific visions for a lot of your setting.
Well, yes, and you need to be specific. You need to have, okay, this is the way things are. This is the way it needs to be. You'll have something that steps outside of the norm, because even an adventurer that's something that steps outside of the norm. But there has to be a norm to step outside of.
so do you think Serath then, generally speaking, is a pretty traditional fantasy world?
Some parts of it are. Some parts of it are not.
But occasionally you do bend the type.
Right. See, there has to be the familiar and then the interesting enough to step outside of the familiar. So
Right,
you
right.
you need to have both. If you go too far outside, it's something else.
Yeah. I tend to flood so much weirdness that when someone is normal or expected, they cling to that person like a life raft.
Well, like Spelljammer is like one of your favorite settings, right, Chris?
Oh yeah, Spelljammer and Planescape. Pretty much, if you smash those two settings together, you kind of get me as a GM.
Right. And what's the norm in Planescape? Because there is a norm.
Well, now for sure, I think Tieflings became the norm. That's where Tieflings became part of the normal gaming culture, straight from Planescape.
Well, I'm speaking more to the world itself. The norm is it's cosmopolitan.
Oh yeah. Sigil is like the quintessential fantasy cosmopolitan city, right?
No, nobody's really from anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a cosmopolitan place.
Yep.
And so with that norm in place, it would be very strange to have somebody who's been there his whole life.
Right. When I did my planar campaign setting, I threw out, people were like, well, what's the breakdown? What's the breakdown on percents of the species population? I was like, it's so diverse, nothing's more than 2%. Do you want me to put that in a stat block? Or can we just say nothing's more than 2%? Let's not do stat blocks for it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So even something as weird and off the wall still has those norms.
Yeah.
There will always be some norms established. And in the case of the Planescape, it would be. Did I say Planescape? No, that's Magic the Gathering.
No, Planescape. Planescape's D&D. Yeah.
Okay, right. I'm getting my stuff confused.
Sigil, one of the best PC games ever made.
That's right.
Oh yeah. The one with the nameless one, Torment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was really good. I like that.
That's why I had to get Colin on my book. But, so I think Alex is saying, is it Kina is what I remember the character being named. Like, was it Gourmand? Yeah. But,
the weird fat thing that would dance.
Yes.
The long tongue.
Yeah.
The chase frogs.
Of course, I tried to make it all serious when a character ran a Gourmand in one of my games. And then, like, first session after seeing somebody, like, he eats, like, it was like an undead thing, and he got, like, inflict wounds, right, from eating the undead thing. First thing another player says, oh, so you're Kirby.
Oh.
All seriousness, just suddenly replaced by a giant pink jiggly thing.
I could just see you in slow motion. No.
I don't remember the last game Kirby ate a zombie, but we'll move. We'll go with it.
He eats vampires sometimes too. I remember that. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, Quan was the species, the race. Cool. I think we're running down on time, so I think we need to get some shout-outs out.
Yeah. So, Caleb, if people wanted to follow your work, where should they do so?
You can find me on our Discord channel. You can just throw the link in there if you like, gentlemen. That's the best way to reach me. And you can reach 3D Art Digital's Patreon. Keep paying attention to Kickstarter. Sergey and I will be launching another project soon under Soul Good Creations.
Okay.
I've designed 2 or 3 dioramas for him. One is based on the Rainbow Bridge from Norse mythology. That will be our second release. The first one, we're doing a post-apocalyptic release. And that's going to be really good. So what I wanted to do for this going forward was I wanted something for everybody. So it's always going to have a big model, a piece of terrain, and bases, and then small miniatures. So that's what we're doing going forward. And that will be in the form of a diorama.
Interesting.
And in this first diorama, you have a tech knight with 2 rotary machine guns mounted on his arms, fighting back-to-back with a tech barbarian, armed with an energy axe and shield. As 2 raiders are taking cover behind this big armored car, and they're about to shoot him with a missile launcher. And then on the other side, about to leap upon the tech barbarian, is this big mutant whose face is covered by a mask with claws.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are the minis going to be separable from the diorama, or are they going to be integrated?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, the basis for that will be post-apocalyptic. So it'll be a bunch of junk and girders and things like that.
I just got to have the mutant be able to eat a PC. So I can take the mutant off and have it eat a PC. That would be perfect.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
All right.
And I do want to remind their listeners that you can still late pledge to the 3D printable stuff for gamers and painters, which is the charity campaign. You can find that over on Frontiers. We'll have a link to it in their show notes. All right, everyone. Anything you want to shout out to, Kristen?
No. Just thanks for coming on the show, Caleb. It was really great to have you.
It was good being here. And I want to thank everyone who donated, everyone who supported, everyone who wrote. And actually had a lot of people who messaged me directly asking about Sergey, asking about me, asking about the team. Thank you for that, truly.
We'll be continuing to hope for the absolute best and hope that this continues to get all the support it needs.
Thank you.
And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Parrot.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Last Spheres.
And I'm Caleb Goodson.
Don't forget to use your screen protector.
I was waiting for it.
Sorry.